Hi, it's Dwyer. It's June 9th, 2022. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. You know, one of my favorite trainers, and he has been for a long time, is Robert Garcia. Right? Garcia has had many great fighters, and quite frankly, he's added a lot to their games. Marcus Maidana, in my opinion, was almost unrecognizable as a Robert Garcia fighter, right? Garcia made a puncher into a fighter who had defense, who threw a lot of feints, who understood how to counter. And he did so several years into Maidana's career, right? Maidana was with other people. He joined Garcia. I would say the progress was exponential, right? Let me go one step further. Garcia's had some rough and tumble guys. Brandon Rios, Virgil Ortiz, right? Ortiz, more talented than Rios, bigger puncher. But what I liked was the fact that with Garcia, both of these guys stayed aggressive, right? Virgil Ortiz was getting early KOs. Brandon Rios was always stalking an opponent even when he was overmatched, as he was in the Manny Pacquiao fight. Right? Garcia is not a trainer who takes away a fighter's aggressiveness. They'll continue to be aggressive. Right? Antonio Margarita, for example, for his fight against Manny Pacquiao. And I believe a blessed puncher, and that's who he is. Anthony Joshua needs that kind of trainer. I consider his hiring of Garcia to be a major step forward by him. Now, I'm picking Usyk for the rematch, in part because I believe you can sign with a Ray Arcel, you can sign with an Angelo Dundee, you can sign with a Gil Clancy, right? The problem is these guys need time to teach you the ropes, right? Boxing to me is more of a marathon than a sprint. I can't just decide that I'm going to improve my game, join up with Abel Sanchez, and then suddenly be a world beater my next time out. Right? Suddenly, in a sport where guys get in trouble, right? This is, as Ray Robinson called it, the hurt business. When you're hurt in the ring and you're operating on instincts, right? In my opinion, it takes a while for that voice inside your head to say, hey, remember what Robert Garcia or Abel Sanchez or Freddie Roach told you, right? That takes a while. So Anthony Joshua, within months of his rematch against Usyk, has signed on with a superstar trainer. I'm not expecting the full advantage a fighter would realize from training for years with Robert Garcia to be realized by Anthony Joshua in the upcoming fight. Let's talk about other things working against Joshua, and they're significant. Revisit the 12th round. Revisit the last 45 seconds of his fight against Usyk. Now, Usyk, who's well on his way to a victory at that point, decides to put the exclamation point at the end of the sentence. He steps in the pocket and he starts on demand, cuffing around Anthony Joshua. Both fighters realize right now how dangerous Usyk can be on his front foot. Right? Usyk must be thinking to himself, I can stop this guy. Right? Joshua has to be thinking to himself, this guy can hurt me. Understand, it's a big realization, given that Usyk was the undisputed cruiserweight champion, right? There's no pretense here. There isn't the idea of, oh, the heavyweight division is too big for Usyk. There's none of that. Both men understand that if things fall a certain way, Joshua's going to be in the same kind of trouble that he was in that 12th round. Right? Understand, too, that Joshua has signed on with a new trainer, and it's not like he's fighting an average fighter. This isn't when you get in the car and you're trying to get your license for the first time and you're trying things out. No. Joshua's fighting one of the very best in the sport, right? A shortlister for the best pound for pound if you include heavyweights. I try not to on my pound for pound list because that was really intended to shine a light on non-heavyweights. Boxing's that unbalanced. As you know what I believe, there's the heavyweight champ and then there's everyone else. But make no mistake, whatever weight class, Usyk is one of the best of our time. Right? There's no one jumping out of the weeds saying he wasn't the best at cruiser because when he became undisputed at cruiser, he, of course, beat Maris Briedis. He beat Robert Garcia. This is a guy who walked in the front door. Right? At heavyweight, an argument can be made. And I've said so myself here online in countless videos. Joshua's a blessed puncher. In terms of just pure punching ability with both hands. Not one punch, not a straight right hand, but two-handed power. Right, left. To the head, to the body. Hooks, straight punches. Joshua probably has the hardest assortment of punchings, right? Certainly he has the most punching power, in my opinion, in the heavyweight division. Right? I'll give Wilder his due. I'll give Zhang Zhili his due. But those guys, with their dominant hand, are great at knocking you out up top with headshots. Anthony Joshua hits so hard, he could hit you out. He could knock you out with either hand off body shots. This is a rare talent. I'm a DAZN subscriber. I'm thrilled that he signed with DAZN. I want to see his fights. Now, all of that said, let's address the biggest line that Robert Garcia said in a recent interview. And understand, Garcia is a sought-after trainer. Right? He's the guy who picks the fighters he wants to train. Right? He's the guy who fighters come looking for. Right? Garcia's headquarters is in an out-of-the-way place in California. Guys are flying planes. They're driving for miles to get there. Right, so Garcia in a recent interview made the claim that Anthony Joshua, and here's where I disagree with a great trainer, that Anthony Joshua was the most talented guy in the heavyweight division. Right now, had he said the most talented puncher, I might have agreed with him. Lord knows Joshua hits hard. Just look at Kubrat Pulev when he hits the canvas. Right? Pulev looks like he's been in a car crash. But what I want you to do is to look at Pulev when he gets off the canvas. That's more revealing. In my opinion, part of being talented is knowing who you are, is having confidence in yourself. Right? You'll notice in the NBA Finals, the Golden State Warriors, you'll notice that Andrew Wiggins at times is doing things that are remarkable. He's what I call a freak athlete, right? Quick jumper, gets to spots faster than others. You couple that with the fact that he actually hit a higher percentage of his threes this season than Steph Curry. Is a better defender than Steph Curry. And you have to ask yourself, gee, why isn't Wiggins the star of the team? And the reason is because Steph Curry believes in himself. Because Steph Curry can miss a three. The next time he has an open look from behind the arc, he's taking the shot. In my opinion, you can't be the most talented fighter at heavyweight if you don't fully believe in yourself. Say what you want about Tyson Fury. He believes in himself. Right? Understand, Fury might not have the punching power of an Anthony Joshua. That's not going to stop him from trading with Deontay Wilder. That's not going to stop him from fighting Deontay Wilder. Right? I view Joshua as a guy who has great punching power, right? On par really with anyone I've seen. Has great punching power, but yet I personally never confuse him with a George Foreman, with a Sonny Liston, with a Mike Tyson, with a Lennox Lewis. Right? What I want people to do, take Lennox Lewis. Very gentlemanly, very soft-spoken when you talk with him. Right? Or you see him in interviews. But revisit the Andrew Galata fight. Folks, Galata does not make it out of the first round. Revisit the Michael Grant fight. You're going to see a fighter who just decided, hey man, I'm going to ice this guy early. For this guy to make it to the third round, by the way, neither guy does. For this guy to make it to the third round, he's going to have to deal with an all-out assault. Right? Of all the people in the world who, if I were Anthony Joshua, I'd pick up the phone and call, it would be George Foreman. Right? That's the attitude the guy needs. For me to then call him more talented. Right? George Foreman, whatever you think about him, George Foreman came out and made sure that he wasn't bashful. Right? He's throwing punches against, you name it, Kenny Norton, Joe Frazier, Ron Lyle, Jerry Cooney, even later in his career. Right? Foreman understood that a big punch isn't of much use if you don't throw it. Foreman also realized that he needed to have an advanced defense. So he surrounded himself with spectacular people. Understand, Sonny Liston's protege, people don't realize this. They sparred together. They hung out together. Was young George Foreman. Understand, in his corner at one point, Foreman had Sandy Sadler. We always hear about Willie Pep. Folks, the person who won that series was Sandy Sadler. Huge puncher. Right, huge puncher. Extremely high IQ. Right, another guy in his corner, the guy who Foreman got his defense from, was Archie Moore. Understand, Archie Moore is interesting because he didn't used to be a puncher. Then he became one of the most deadly punchers in boxing history. To me, talent is figuring it all out and understanding I'm the bigger man. I throw the bigger punch. I need to put this guy on the clock. And if I get an advantage, if I knock Joe Frazier down 5 times, I've got to keep at it, knock him down a 6th time, take his title. That's not Anthony Joshua right now. Kubrat Pulev gets off the canvas. Kubrat Pulev lasts for several rounds. It's as if Joshua didn't know that he hits like a Liston or a Foreman or a Tyson. Right? Joshua just doesn't have that level of confidence. He's the gentle giant. He's big and clunky. There are times when you see the talent level. Right? The Dillian Whyte fight. Dillian Whyte pushes the issue. That's the secret to the fight. Dillian Whyte is there and he firmly believes that he can beat the guy he dropped in the amateurs. When pushed, Anthony Joshua responds. You see the punching power, you see the two-handed punching power in that Dillian Whyte fight. But what happens if you don't push Joshua? What happens if you come in and you decide you're just going to outbox him, like Usyk did? George Foreman would make it rough and tumble. Foreman would start pushing Usyk. Foreman would start throwing punches. Not Joshua. That's not who he is. He's not a hunter. I believe that's a talent. Knowing that you're the bigger man, knowing that you have the power advantage in the early rounds, understanding that you don't want to have the fight linger because the boxer you're facing might actually figure you out, might tire you out. It backfired on Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle against Ali. Okay, fair enough. But revisit that tape. Foreman is leaving nothing to chance. It's only because Ali is taking a lot of punishment and is a great fighter, far above average defensively, and has something called a rope-a-dope that he suddenly discovers, right? His corner is telling him to get off the ropes. Ali stays on the ropes. That Foreman lost that fight. Both fighters knew that fight couldn't be fought a second time because, of course, Ali decides not to give Foreman, who was a huge box office draw in the mid-70s, another shot at the title. Right? Let's also understand, too, when we talk about talent, different guys are trying to accomplish different things in the ring. Tell me the fight where Anthony Joshua decides to fight left-handed and remains coordinated. Right? Still has a stiff jab. Still is able to move around the ring. What fight is that? Folks, it doesn't exist. There are several moments in several Tyson Fury fights where Fury shows off an ambidexterity. Tell me the Anthony Joshua fight where he gets up on the toes of his feet against a championship level fighter, let's say a Vladimir Klitschko, and is moving around the ring so well, is mixing in movement so well in his presentation that the other guy can't even get off punches. Folks, there's no comparison between Joshua's feet and Tyson Fury's feet. Understand what Fury is not only trying to accomplish in the ring, but actually accomplishing in the ring is far beyond where Joshua is right now. right? Joshua is the blessed puncher. Everyone who sees him understands big man, athlete, blessed puncher. Everyone knows it. But he hasn't been pushed, and this is the guy who needs to be pushed to develop his defense. Think about it. Floyd Mayweather, freak athlete, spectacular defensively. You should think about Mayweather, and I'm serious about this, like you think about Michael Jordan. Right? As good as Jordan was offensively, the slam dunks, oh my goodness. Jordan, freak athlete, could dominate a game offensively. Understand, as Jerry West puts it, there's a stretch where Michael Jordan is the best defensive player in basketball. Right? The offense wasn't enough. Floyd Mayweather, freak athlete. Great left hook. Spectacular left hook. But for Floyd Mayweather, it's about defense. Mayweather couldn't imagine entering a ring without focusing on defense. That's who he was. Right? Great defensively. Mayweather saw Anthony Joshua, invited Joshua to his gym. Right? Mayweather's kind of like Robert Garcia. Right? People come to him. Mayweather invites Joshua to his gym. According to reports, Mayweather wanted Joshua to work on his defense. Right? Now, I'm just telling you, there's another side of the spectrum where a fighter's hungry. A fighter hasn't gotten the early paydays that Olympic gold medalists get. And the fighter understands he himself has to focus on defense. Right? You look at Tyson Fury's brother, spiritually, Terence Crawford. Crawford's ambidextrous. Crawford is defensively blessed. Can you remember Crawford getting rung up by even a sudden fighter like Sean Porter when he fought Porter? Right? Green Machine hurts and drops Crawford. I know the ref blows it, but he hurts and drops Crawford. When Crawford gets off the canvas, he's pissed. But guess what, folks? He shows you the rest of the fight. He's defensively blessed. Mean Machine can't get in hard shots. Crawford, like Ray Leonard, is widely misunderstood. Crawford's actually a hunter. Right? Crawford ends that fight. Look at Crawford's KOs. Look at Ray Leonard's KOs. Right? For me, Anthony Joshua, and this is one man's opinion, and I understand. I get a lot of blowback on this. I get that Joshua is one of the most loved fighters in the entire sport. I don't question that. I know he is a box office king. Whoever has the title, Joshua's the box office king. I get it. Right? I get it. But to me, Joshua is the guy who showed a lot of promise. People see the power. They fall in love with the power. They see his physique. They fall in love with his physique. Right? He has things that are marketable. An Olympic gold medal. Right? He has a personality that translates in interviews. Right? He beats Joseph Parker, one of the best post-fight interviews I've ever seen. He starts talking about unity and stuff like that. He's well-spoken. If you're a corporation looking to back a guy, wow, he's a guy you back. I'll agree with all of that. But to me, that's different than confidence. I don't believe he believes in himself as much as George Foreman believed in himself. As much as Sonny Liston believed in himself. Right? And that's not the same as hunger He just doesn't look like a hungry fighter to me. A hungry fighter, when he had some belts and Deontay Wilder had a belt, would have made that fight happen. Understand, I'm a child of the 70s. I remember guys like Matthew Saad Muhammad wanting to fight guys, great light heavyweight, and Muhammad would attend fights. He would get good seats at fights, and he'd be looking to get interviewed. So he could say, hey man, I want to fight this guy. Right? You know who was by the ring for the Ken Norton, George Foreman fight? Ali. Gave an interview right after the fight saying, hey, I want to fight this guy. These guys weren't hiding behind promoters. How does Ali go through the 1980s? Fighting Frazier, Norton. By the way, he fights both of those guys 3 times. Foreman, give him credit. Foreman had the belt. He fought Foreman once. I think he understood he couldn't beat Foreman again. Ernie Shavers, Ron Lyle. Say what you want about him. We didn't have what we had here with Joshua hiding behind managerial people, not fighting Deontay Wilder. Blame who you want. You and I know that's not hunger. How did Lennox Lewis fight Evander Holyfield multiple times? Right? Lewis even fights Mike Tyson. I'll agree. Lewis did take step-aside money and didn't fight Riddick Bowe as a professional, but let's remember, Lewis beats Bowe in the Olympics. Right? But understand, hungry fighters go about it differently, don't they? Right? We don't speculate about who would have won a Lennox Lewis-Vitaly Klitschko fight because they actually fought. Right? Joshua, you'd be surprised, hasn't had that many fights. How is Joshua this far along in his career without fighting Tyson Fury once or Deontay Wilder once? You tell me, in this era of heavyweight boxing, aren't those 2 of the top guys? You realize Wilder had the belt for 5 years. 5 years. How long has Tyson Fury been the lineal? So forgive me, I'm a skeptic. A superstar trainer says, hey, this guy's the most talented heavyweight. Right? And the guy is cautious. The guy, isn't ambidextrous. The guy doesn't really believe in himself. The guy has let guys off the hook. Right? Understand. Vladimir Klitschko gets dropped by Joshua. Right? Joshua goes for it in that round. What happens next? Right? It's Klitschko getting the next knockdown. Right? We've seen fights. The Joseph Parker fight. What more did Joshua need? He's in front of his crowd. Parker has traveled to the UK to fight him. Right? Think about it. That fight goes 12 rounds. The Andy Ruiz rematch. If some guy, and Liston has a loss, I understand. People look at Liston, and I'm not talking about the Leotis Martin loss. He has a loss earlier in his career. Some people claim it's a blue fight. That Liston, who had mob connections through the fight, etc. Okay, fine. But I couldn't imagine a guy knocking down Sonny Liston multiple times. And then let's say in the second fight, Liston is playing it cautiously. He's outside, he's dancing. The other guy can't really move that well, right? Andy Ruiz couldn't move that well. I couldn't imagine Liston not, by the 10th round, saying, okay, I have this fight on the scorecards. Now this SOB is going to pay for knocking me down multiple times the first fight. Right? Just think about the ill will in the later rounds of the Thrilla in Manila. Right? I don't see that fire in Anthony Joshua. So yeah, he might be the most blessed puncher at heavyweight right now. He probably is. Right? I would say Deontay Wilder throws an A+ straight right hand. That's a great punch. I would say Joshua is the better puncher. Joshua has a concussive left hand. Joshua can hurt you with overhand rights or with right hooks up top to the body. Right? I'll agree with that. But this is boxing. This is a sport of hunger. This is a sport of taking risks. This is a sport of confidence. This is a sport of self-awareness. I don't think Joshua has those things to the extent that someone like Tyson Fury does. Think about it. Tyson Fury's last fight against Deontay Wilder, a classic that will be part of both men's resume 20 years from now. They'll be talking about that fight. Fury goes down hard the second time in the round. Gets off the canvas. Wants to keep his title. Comes out the next round, there's no way the guy was lucid. He's bluffing. He's in against a hellacious puncher. Those are the moments where you look at a guy and you figure out who he is. I know who Tyson Fury is. He's the heavyweight champion. Right, that's a fight where I give both guys credit. Because understand, Deontay Wilder was in bad trouble. You know who Wilder is off that fight. Wilder comes back. At the end of the fight, you look left, you look right, you say, man, these dudes, they went for it. They took chances. Getting knocked down didn't discourage either of them. Is that what you saw the first Andy Ruiz fight? Let's just say Anthony Joshua is talented. He and his new trainer have work to do. I don't believe they have enough time to beat Usyk. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. If you feel I'm being unfair, tell me about it in the comment section of this video. Right? If you feel Joshua is the most talented heavyweight on the planet, tell us about it. Let me just say too, the next generation is in the building. Right? There's some dangerous men, folks, at heavyweight. Dangerous men. Big Baby, and I'm not talking about the guy who PED'd himself out of a fight against Joshua, Jarrell Miller. Right? Big Baby, dangerous. Zhang Zhili, dangerous. Right? You have storm clouds in the heavyweight division. Understand, I've been here talking about guys in their 30s. You and I know there's a whole group of guys on the way up. Filip Ergovic, the guy I think is the future king. Right? Joseph Parker. He's in his 30s, but I'll tell you what, I know he would love to have another shot at Joshua with a real referee, one who will let him fight inside. Let's just say, I think Robert Garcia has his hands full. As a DAZN subscriber, I will be watching Joshua fights carefully. Right? Boxing is a sport of redemption. As I mentioned earlier in this video, great light heavyweight Archie Moore was not a puncher. Taught himself how to beat a puncher. Went up to heavyweight. Right? He went for it. Was in the ring against Rocky Marciano and knocked Marciano down. Right? You can look at the film and judge whether, as Archie Moore believes, the referee costs him the heavyweight title. Right? But understand, boxing is a sport where you can learn new things and improve your game. I believe the burden is on Anthony Joshua. By the way, Deontay Wilder has announced that he's coming back to boxing today. A Wilder-Joshua fight would be a bonanza. Just imagine what it would have been when both guys were unbeaten with titles. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.